Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. Today we are going to see Class 12 Biology, Chapter 6 Evolution. In that we are going to see adaptive radiation, biological evolution and mechanism of evolution. So until now we have learned about evidences for evolution and Darwin's theory of natural selection. Now let us understand three very important concepts. One is the adaptive radiation, biological evolution and mechanism of evolution. So these concepts they are frequently asked in CBSE board exams. So understand them carefully. So let's start with the topic adaptive radiation. First, let us understand the term adaptive radiation. So, during his famous voyage on the ship HMS Beagle, Charles Darwin visited the Galapagos Island. Where he visited? Galapagos Island. So, there he noticed something very interesting. So, he found many small black birds known today as Darwin's finches. So, at first glance, they looked similar. At first glance, they look similar. So, here is a picture of, Darwin's finches. Yeah, at first glance they are looking similar, right? But when Darwin observed carefully, he noticed that the beaks were different. Why were the beaks different? See, the original ancestor was mainly a seed-eating finch, but food was not the same everywhere, right, on the island. In some places it will be insects, in some places it will be fruits or seeds. So because of this different food sources, different groups of finches gradually developed different types of beaks. So for example, we can say strong beaks for breaking the seeds, and long pointed beaks for catching insects, and also thick curved beaks for eating fruits and leaves. Although all these birds they came from a common ancestor, they evolved into many different species, and this process is called as adaptive radiation. So what adaptive radiation means? See, it means the evolution of many different species, evolution of many different species from one common ancestor, each adapting to a different habitat or way of life in the same geographical area. So this Darwin's finches are considered the best example of adaptive radiation. So how to remember? See, it is nothing one ancestor, many species and different habitats. That is adaptive radiation. So next we are going to see Australian marsupials. So it is another excellent example, yeah, which is found in Australia. So Australia remained isolated from other continents for millions of years. So in this isolated continent, a group of mammals called marsupials evolved. So what are they? See, marsupials are mammals, right? They carry their young ones inside a pouch. Example like a kangaroo, yes, and a koala, and also wombat, Tasmanian wolf. So all these animals evolved from a single ancestral marsupial. Since they occupied different habitat, they gradually developed different body forms. Again, this is another example of adaptive radiation. And what is this convergent evolution? See, convergent evolution, uh, so you have to understand it. It will be little confusing concept, but try to understand. It's very easy only. Okay, Australia also has placental mammals. Already we saw marsupials. Now Australia also has placental mammals. So interestingly, many placental mammals they look very similar to marsupials. For example, if we see this placental wolf, it resembles the Tasmanian wolf, and the flying squirrel resembles the flying phalanger. But these animals did not come from the same recent ancestor. Then from where they evolved separately but developed similar features. Why? Because they adapted to similar environments, and this is called convergent evolution. So what is the difference of this adaptive radiation and convergent evolution? In adaptive radiation, one ancestor gives rise to many species. In convergent evolution, different ancestors develop similar features because they live under similar environmental conditions. So next, Darwin explained evolution through one important process called natural selection. So just imagine a bacterial population. See, all bacteria are not exactly identical. Some may use nutrients better than others. Suppose scientists suddenly change the nutrient medium, means what will happen? Most bacteria may die, right? But a few bacteria, they just inherit variation and they live, right? So these bacteria survive and they multiply also. Then what happens? The entire population consists of this fitter bacteria, and this is called as natural selection. What is fitness then? Fitness in biology, it does not mean strength or muscles. So fitness means the ability to survive and produce more offsprings. So the organism that are better adapted, they leave more offsprings. So nature automatically selects them, and this is why Darwin said nature selects the fittest. And what is this genetic basis? Uh, but why can one organism survive while other cannot? Why? Because survival depends on inherited genes. Survival depends on inherited genes, and adaptive ability is inherited. So this fitness, it has a genetic basis. So only inherited characters can be passed to the next generation. And then Darwin, he had two important concepts in the form of theory. Yes, the first is the branching descent. So one ancestral species gradually give rise to many different species. And the second one is the natural selection. We know natural selection. So the nature selects organisms with favorable inherited variations. And together these explain the evolution. So next is the Lamarck's theory. So before Darwin, another scientist named Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, he proposed a different theory. He believed in the theory of use and disuse, a theory of use and disuse. So according to Lamarck, giraffe originally had short necks. You can see here, they had short necks, but they continuously stretched their necks to reach the tall leaves. So as a result, what happened? Their necks became longer, and he believed this acquired character was passed to the next generation. But modern genetics, it has shown that acquired characters are not inherited. That is why the Lamarck's explanation is now rejected. And next we are going to see Malthus. So Darwin was also influenced by Thomas Malthus. So Malthus explained that resources are limited. What? Resources are limited, but in that resources also, limited resources, population grow very rapidly. So what happens? Automatically a competition will be created, right? So only organisms with a favorable inherited variation survive and reproduce. So this idea only helped Darwin to explain the natural selection. So next we are going to see mechanism of evolution. So now comes an important question. Where do these variations come from? Yes. So Darwin, he knew that variations existed, but he could not explain their origin. Then later scientists like Hugo de Vries, they provided an explanation. So what was the explanation? There comes the mutation. So while working on the evening primrose plant, Hugo de Vries observed sudden large changes. He called these changes as mutations. And what is this mutation? Mutation means a sudden heritable change in genetic material. Mutation means sudden heritable change in genetic material. And then Darwin and Hugo de Vries. So according to the Darwin, evolution happens slowly. Yes, evolution happens slowly, and the small inherited variation accumulate over many generations, and this is called as a gradual evolution. But what Hugo de Vries believed, he believed large mutation can produce new species in a single step. Can you see here? So this is Darwin. So it is taking gradual increasing. Here a single step you can produce variation. So large mutation can produce a new species in a single step. And he called this saltation. Yes, he called this saltation. So let's see the difference between the Darwin and Hugo de Vries. So here the small inherited variations you can see, and here large sudden mutation. Here slow gradual evolution. Here is sudden evolution. And here the natural selection is the main driving force. Here mutation is the main driving force. Here evolution takes many generations. Here speciation may occur in single step, that is saltation. Okay, so let's go to the final thing. Let's have a quick revision. So again, as in the previous video, I have given all the important things here. So before we end, let us quickly revise. So Darwin's finches is the best example of adaptive radiation, and this Australian marsupials is another example of adaptive radiation. And the placental mammals and marsupials, yeah, they are convergent evolution. And then Darwin's theory, that is, it gives rise to natural selection and also branching descent. And then fitness means reproductive success based on inherited traits. And then Lamarck theory is use and disuse. That is the rejected. Yeah. So Thomas Malthus is a competition for limited resources which influenced Darwin. And Hugo Duviris is a mutation theory. And the saltation means sudden evolution due to large mutation. Okay, children, go through the whole video. Don't skip the video. Yes, we will see you in the next video. If you have any doubt, feel free to ask me. I'll reply to you immediately. Thank you.